10 spine-chilling true. Hauntings of 2025, terrifying secrets revealed and sinister forces exposed. Lisa thought she'd found paradise, a quaint house on a quiet street, perfect for her fresh start after the divorce. The kids were ecstatic with their new rooms, and the neighborhood watch group welcomed her with open arms. At first glance, everything seemed perfect. But those first few weeks turned ominous. It started subtly. Lisa noticed late-night gatherings at her neighbor's house, shadows flickering against the wall like they were casting their own dark secrets. Whispers erupted into silence the moment she appeared. It sent chilling shivers down her spine. Yet she brushed it off, thinking it was just her nerves settling in. But her children, innocent and unfiltered, began mentioning a new friend named Maggie. "She tells us stories, Mummy," they said. Lisa's heart sank. Who was Maggie? Intrigued yet apprehensive, she let the matter go, for now. Yet the air in her home grew thick with unease. Bathroom doors creaked, toys moved apart from where they were left. It was unsettling. Little things in a mix of normal chaos with 2 kids in the house, but it took on a life of its own and preyed on Lisa's thoughts. As the days passed, those whispers turned into something that felt alive, like unseen eyes trailing her every move, an eerie presence she couldn't shake. After finding a dusty box while cleaning the attic, Lisa stumbled upon yellowed newspaper clippings. Her fingers trembled as she read the chilling headlines about women disappearing from the very town she now called home. Each headline felt linked, piecing together a disturbing portrait of mistrust and betrayal embedded deep within the community. The past dripped with dark secrets, and Lisa felt time wrapping tighter around her, squeezing the breath from her lungs. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. She decided to confront the neighbors one quiet evening, standing on the porch with her heart pounding. "I've noticed some odd things. My kids talk about Maggie," she said, trying not to sound frantic. They chuckled softly, their eyes dancing with something dark. "Kids and their imaginations," they replied with a dismissive wave. But Lisa saw the glint of something more, an edge lurking behind their fake concern that sent her heart racing with dread. When the police were called for help, they returned her calls with apathy, like her fears were just shadows flitting in the night. She felt solitude sliding into her mind, heavy like an anchor. Shadows whispered around her. She'd hear sobs echoed through the house, reminiscent of a lost soul pleading for release. Each night, extended tension in the atmosphere. Lisa felt corners of the house closing in. It no longer felt like the refuge she had hoped for. The once thriving warmth of the community turned cold. Those friendly faces felt like masks, hiding depravity. A world woven by smiles, now sinister entities lurking just beneath. Then came the terrifying moment when her children began banging at their bedroom door late one night, calling for their mommy. Their voices trembled, washed in dread. "Mom, let us out! Maggie's here!" They were terrified, and it froze Lisa in place. As she rushed to them, a hard knock echoed from the front door, calm and uncanny. "Let us in, Mummy! Maggie's—" She stood there at the threshold, sweat pooling at the base of her neck, her breath hitching. Who was on the other side? Everything in her screamed to protect her kids, yet something deeper lurked behind the door, waiting for her next move. The whispers of Maggie danced through her thoughts, spiraling down a path she never wanted to go. Would she open the door and let in a danger she couldn't comprehend? The night felt heavy with possibilities, her heart racing as the silence stretched between them, tense and unyielding. The knocking grew louder, almost desperate, vibrating through Lisa's bones. Her instincts screamed for her to turn back, to protect her children, but curiosity gnawed at her. Who was Maggie, and why did her children's cries seem to beckon a darker presence? "Mommy, please!" Their voices quivered, a candle flickering in the raging wind. The realization hit hard. Maggie wasn't just a figment of their imagination. Something more sinister lurked in her children's innocent minds. As she reached for the doorknob, she hesitated, heart pounding, the atmosphere thickening around her. The door creaked under her hesitant touch, revealing a dim hallway that felt longer than it should. The air was electric, as if charged with an unseen force, pulling at her very essence. She peered into the darkness, guiding her tremors back into her chest. No one stood there, just silence, empty and suffocating. Her instincts screamed louder now, drowning out the whispers from the hallway. Maybe it was her mind playing tricks, but she refused to be lulled into complacency. "Stay close to me, kids," she whispered, though they were not beside her anymore. Instead, she turned back to the muffled thumps on the door, her heart hammering. "Let us out, Mommy, please!" The voices distorted into something chillingly wrong, swirling with fear and desperation. Lisa recoiled, back pressed against the wood of the door. Shadows slithered along the edges of the walls, shifting as if caught in a fragment of time, their shapes stretching and compressing. "Stay calm, I'm coming in!" she yelled, rushing to twist the knob. The door didn't budge. It felt alive, resisting her efforts with an unseen force. Panic set in. She whipped around to check on her kids, only to find their bedroom door now ajar. Hadn't she locked it? In a rush, she sprinted towards it, dread spiking with every step. The room was dark, an impenetrable void where her children were supposed to be. She squinted into the shadows, straining to hear anything other than the pulsating thrum of her heart. "Maggie," came a whisper from the depths of the room, chilling her to the marrow. Her breath caught, squeezing the air from her lungs. "Where are you?" she called, dread wrapping around her throat. "Kids!" "Here, Mommy," they echoed from the corner, small voices entwined with something older, something darker. "Hold on." As she crept further inside, icy fingers stroked the back of her neck. The room felt alive, suffocating, wrapping around her like a vice. Just then, a flicker of light caught her eye, a soft glow emanating from under the bed. Lisa dropped to her knees, heart racing, fear clenching her stomach. "Mommy, help us!" echoed through the walls, a cacophony of pleas wrapped in a scraping undertone. She peered into the space beneath the bed, and there, in the fragile halo of light, shadows danced, forming a figure. An outline of a young girl appeared, her eyes hollow and vacant, staring straight into Lisa's soul. "Maggie!" The name felt like a spell being cast. Lisa's instincts shrieked, warning her to retreat, yet she was paralyzed as the girl beckoned. "Come play with us," the figure whispered, a smirk curling on her lips. The room grew darker, the children's voices blending with Maggie's haunting call. It reached for Lisa, pulling her in like a tide. What was happening? In that moment, she realized she wasn't just in danger from what was around her, but also from the will to find the truth. But the question lingered. Is ignorance bliss, or would knowing unveil more than she could bear? With a resolve ignited by fear, she pushed the thought aside, knowing she had to confront this entity before it consumed everything she held dear. Lisa turned away from the girl, shaking in defiance. "No, I'm not playing anymore." But as she stumbled backward to escape, shadows lunged forward. What had she awakened? The darkness twisted into a mounting wave of fear, preparing to swallow her whole. As she braced against the impending doom, would her children be lost forever, ensnared by Maggie's sinister lure? The night held its breath, each second dragging, urging her to make the next move. Lisa's pulse raced as darkness closed in around her. The suffocating air pressed against her chest, the nipping cold wrapping its tendrils around her waist. The shadow of Maggie loomed closer, as if it thrived off her fear. "Get away from me," she screamed, but her voice cracked, splintering into thin slices of terror. The girl's smirk widened, revealing a mouthful of jagged teeth, yellowed and sharp like a predator's. The whispers intensified, each syllable laced with sinister glee. "Why don't you want to play, Mommy?" Maggie's voice rose melodically, mixing with her children's disastrous pleas. "We're all just having fun." Fun. The word twisted and turned in Lisa's mind like a tainted dagger. She couldn't let them be dragged down into this trap, this game of shadows. A surge of adrenaline flooded her system, and with it a desperate thought. She had to fight back somehow. "Stay away from my kids!" she shouted, her voice trembling but firm. But as she swung her gaze back toward the corner, her heart sank. The room was absolutely empty. "No, no, no," she whispered, backing away. The figure of Maggie danced at the edge of her vision, swirling with her chaotic laughter. Lisa squeezed her eyes shut, breathing in and out, trying to muster any semblance of clarity. She could almost hear her children's laughter jumbled in with the haunting echoes of Maggie. They were in here. Somewhere. Opening her eyes, she peered beneath the bed again, pushing against the urge to retreat. "Listen to me, where are you?" The shadows trembled, and suddenly a pair of tiny hands emerged from the darkness, grasping desperately at the floor. "Mommy, help! On the count of 3! She gripped the edge of the bed, pulling her children closer to the light, the flickering halo pulsing like a heartbeat. 1, 2, Mommy! Their little voices strained, the dread wrapped around them, turning thick and viscous. She yanked, dragging at her children's hands, but they were stuck, bound by invisible threads of darkness woven by Maggie's magic. Panic flared. 3! With all her strength, Lisa pulled, jolting them out of the shadow. But instead of her children, she felt a cold rush of air against her palm. She staggered back, the breath hitching in her throat, shivering as Maggie stepped fully from the shadows, dark hair frizzled and unkempt, eyes like empty voids drawing her in. "Do you want to know my secret?" Maggie purred, moving closer until their noses nearly touched. "They're mine now. Leave them alone." Lisa's desperation clawed at her. She forced herself to take a step forward, her heart a drum, a battle cry. Maggie tilted her head, a predator assessing its prey. "If you want to save them, you must play," she taunted, her voice dripping with malice. "Wouldn't it be fun?" Confusion and horror blurred Lisa's thoughts. "What kind of game?" Maggie's smirk widened. "A game of truth. You must choose. A sacrifice." Sacrifice. The word echoed, ricocheting against the mental barriers Lisa struggled to maintain. Suddenly, her heart stopped. The implications smashed into her like ice-cold water. The loss of everything she held dear loomed over her, spiraling into dark impossibilities. She couldn't afford to lose, but what was she willing to sacrifice? "Mommy?" A faint whisper pulled her attention back. "We're here." But how? The walls felt like they were closing in, the shadows now a living entity, writhing and hissing, taunting her resolve. What sacrifice could save them? "Mommy, don't leave us!" The desperation in their voices twisted something deep within Lisa, a flicker of determination igniting against the dark fog. With a raw scream, she thrust herself forward, squared her shoulders, and shouted, "I will not play your game!" But as she lunged into the darkness, doubt surged through her. Had she just made a decision that would cost her everything? The air crackled as the room erupted into chaos, shadows twisting violently, ready to reclaim what they had lost. What would emerge on the other side of this awareness? Lisa's heart raced. What if she didn't have the strength to face what lay ahead? And then a sinister giggle echoed in the space, one that made her blood run cold. "Maggie is waiting." The shadows writhed around Lisa like serpents, undulating in reaction to her defiance. The walls trembled and the lights flickered, casting distorted figures that danced to an unseen rhythm of fear. Lisa felt the weight of Maggie's gaze, cold, calculating, and utterly devoid of sympathy. "Mummy!" The voice of her children, thin and desperate, pierced through the cacophony. It cut across the chaos, slicing through the veil of horror, reminding Lisa of the urgency of her mission. "Help us!" She crouched low, desperation fueling her movement as she scanned the suffocating darkness. "Where are you? I'm coming!" The words tumbled from her lips, a whisper against a hurricane. But as she ventured deeper into the black void, a slippery phantom seized her ankle, an icy grip that threatened to drag her down. "Let go!" she screamed, the panic exploding in her chest like fireworks. Maggie laughed again, the sound curdling in the humid air around her. "That's my game, Lisa. Run as you wish, but you can't escape the truth." The shadows stretched, swallowing her whole, and the world shifted underneath her. In that moment, Lisa was suspended between light and dark, the echo of Maggie's laughter fading into a haunting melody that drummed in her ears. Truth? What did that even mean in this warped reality where nothing was as it seemed? "Choose!" Maggie exclaimed, her voice ringing like a bell. "Your sacrifice will set them free, or doom them forever." Horror threaded its way through Lisa as the weight of the decision settled on her shoulders. A sickening truth swirled in her mind. There could only be one way to save her children. The thought struck her like a blade, caustic and painful. What do I have to do?" she managed, her voice trembling. Each word felt like a step closer to an abyss. Maggie stepped forward, a shadow among shadows, her features warped and twisted, a grotesque interplay of innocence and malice. "A life for a life. Something that means the most to you. A choice, Mummy." The words reverberated heavily, filling every corner of the room, echoing in Lisa's skull. The room spun, and flashes of memory clawed at her. Her children's laughter, their tiny hands in hers, bedtime stories and warm hugs. Her heart clenched. Would she have to sacrifice one of them? The thought was unbearable, a fraying thread in her sanity that she fought to hold on to. "Stop it, you're lying!" she cried out, fierce determination flooding her veins. "I won't choose." Maggie's eyes gleamed with a cruel light. "Oh, but you already have, the moment you walked into my world." Lisa's chest tightened as she felt herself spiral into madness, the spectre of hopelessness coiling around her heart. She refused to succumb. She had to think. There was always a choice, wasn't there? Think, Lisa. What do you cherish most? The question echoed unnervingly, intertwining with the shadows that seemed to beckon her closer. Through the swirling darkness, a flicker of brightness emerged at the corner of her vision. A memory, vivid, alive. The day at the park when her children ran freely, laughing without a care. And then a glint of metal sparking in the darkness. A pocket knife. Her breath hitched. The blade was small enough, but its implications staggered her. With it, she could lead an attack against Maggie's hold, but would it be enough? Would it even free them? "No, I won't make that choice," she whispered, willing herself to stand against the encroaching darkness. "I will find another way." And then, with a gasp, she turned to flee, not away from Maggie, but into her own memory, a flood of courage surging within as she searched for a path through the madness. But as she ran, the laughter morphed into something sinister, an overwhelming tide of despair crashing against her. The shadows reached out, fingers now claw-like, and for the first time fear cut deeper than any blade could. "Maggie is waiting," a sing-song voice reminded her, looming in her mind like a persistent predator. Suddenly, silence fell in the room, pressing down around her like a leaden weight. The lurking horror seemed to withdraw for a moment, leaving a pressing question hanging heavily in the air. What if the choice she made wouldn't be hers to make? And in that chilling stillness, Lisa knew one thing. Maggie would come for her again, and when she did, Lisa would be ready, or so she hoped. But the shadows shifted once more, and the echoes of her children's cries faded. What kind of sacrifice awaited her next? The darkness around her seemed to whisper secrets, breathing heavily. "You'll never escape." Lisa's heart raced like a trapped animal, the silence pressing against her ears, nearly deafening. The shadows softened only briefly, as if holding their breath, waiting for her next move. Goosebumps prickled along her arms, and she shivered, feeling the cold seep into her bones. In the throbbing quiet, she felt the world shifting. The air crackled with tension, electrified, and the landscape morphed before her eyes. The familiar park from her childhood memories twisted grotesquely, the laughter of her children warping into echoes that clawed at her heart. There was a swing set, jagged and rusted, creaking like a funeral dirge, as if it mourned lost joys. "Help us, Mommy!" Their voices, once sweet, now carried an edge of agony, blending with the whispers of the shadows. It sent a shiver down her spine, and the weight of their cries felt like lead. "No!" Lisa shouted, the word tearing from her throat. "I won't let you take them." But the shadows surged forward, a tide of darkness that threatened to drown her resolve. Tiny, clawed hands reached forth from the void, clutching at her clothes, her skin. She stumbled back, fear hollowing her out, and then she heard it, the familiar hum of Maggie's laughter, rich in malice, echoing around her. "Do you think you can escape the choice, sweet Lisa?" Maggie's voice dripped with honeyed cruelty, wrapping around her like a noose. "Your children's futures lie in your hands." The memories flooded back, hugs that were warm, bedtime whispers, birthday parties. Lisa's throat tightened. Everything she loved was tainted with Maggie's taunts, twisted by the very shadows that were suffocating her. "No more!" Lisa screamed, her defiance echoing through the treacherous landscape. She spun, searching frantically for a way out, for her children, for hope. But beneath her feet, the ground pulsed ominously, the darkness beneath growing thicker, more insistent. "Maggie, you don't own me." She could feel herself standing on the precipice of madness. Memories warped and wriggled in her mind, tormenting her with images of anguish and desperation. Time or choice. They blurred and fused, one decision overshadowing the next. "Mommy!" A single name stretched out from the void, pulling at her, damp with despair. Lisa felt a deeper pang. What kind of monster was she becoming in this fight for survival? Suddenly, a startling revelation jolted her. "The knife!" she gasped to herself, rallying against the darkness. The glimmer of metal once again danced in her memory. She focused, channeling every ounce of willpower towards it. Light burst forth, a beam cutting through the shadows as if it were alive. She stretched out her hand, picturing the blade, imagining its grip tightening around her fingers, the cool steel her protection against the encroaching dread. But as she reached for it, the shadows twisted tighter, forming a figure, Maggie's distorted face leering at her with eyes that burned red, passionless and cruel. "Futile!" she howled, the shadows snarling in tandem. Lisa trembled, almost surrendering, but then, hovering between fear and raw survival instinct, she steeled her spine. "I'm not afraid of you," she cried, desperation fueling her resolve. With a surge of will, she plunged into the abyss of darkness, seeking a way to reclaim her freedom. "Your defiance will be your undoing," Maggie screeched, the shadows writhing in protest as Lisa pushed deeper, fighting against the pull of despair. But just as the darkness whirled around her, images flashed in her mind, grim faces, lost souls chained to the void forever. The looming question clawed its way back into her thoughts. Was she prepared to become one of them? A sudden incantation surged, cracking through her defenses. A whisper, it could have been a cry or a warning, lingered in the air. "Will you save them, or save yourself?" And as dread loomed, a new realization struck sharp as glass. What if Maggie's game was more than it seemed? In that moment, amidst the swirling chaos, the shadows shrieked and began to blur, the question of sacrifice shifting into something more sinister, just as the ground trembled. "Maggie isn't the only one with a secret." And the darkness roared back, feeding off her uncertainty as Lisa braced herself for the revelation waiting just beyond the veil. Would she stand alone in her fight? Or was there more to Maggie's wicked game than she had dared to uncover? Lisa's thoughts teetered on the brink, caught between clarity and chaos. The shadows writhed around her, eager to swallow her whole. Her heart pounded in her chest, a frantic rhythm echoing her doubt. What secret could Maggie possibly hold that would alter the final stakes of this twisted game? The voices of her children faded momentarily, leaving behind an eerie stillness. It felt like a trap, a deceptive lull, but she couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere buried in the heart of darkness lay the truth she desperately needed. Gathering her strength, she forced herself to look beyond the swirling void. "Show me!" she yelled, her voice breaking through the oppression, resonating against the walls of despair. "Show me the truth!" The shadows recoiled for a flicker of a second, as if surprised by her demand. Then, as if obeying a command, shapes began to coalesce, forming images that hovered in the gloom. Lisa gaped as the scene unfolded before her. Her life intertwined with silhouettes hovering at the fringes. There was her wedding day, joyous laughter surrounding her. But then it twisted, the mood shifting. Cracks formed in the happy moment, warping into chaos. "What is this?" she whispered, dread pooling in her stomach like lead. The festivities splintered into stark images of Maggie, sneering in the background, whispering into her ear with a knowing smile. "You don't remember, do you?" Maggie's voice slithered from the shadows, taunting. "You locked me away, but I've always been here, lurking." A flash. Lisa's maternal instincts igniting as the images morphed again. Her children's faces splashed with tears, their laughter now strangled. "Stop, stop it!" she begged, panic surging. But Maggie only laughed, her malevolence echoing through the dark. "You chose me. You chose fear over truth. You think these shadows are here by chance. They are the price of your denial." Denial? Lisa clutched her head, the memories grappling for purchase in her mind. "This isn't real. I didn't choose this." "Didn't you?" The shadows twisted, revealing more. A narrow corridor filled with echoes of despair, and at its end, a pale light flickering like hope. "You closed the door last time, but that door opens with a choice." "Which choice?" Lisa shouted, desperate for answers. "What do I have to do?" "The knife," echoed Maggie's voice, now steeped in glee. "You must wield it. Only then can you save your children or save yourself. Make your bargain." Suddenly the shadows lunged, icy fingers clawing at her skin, pulling her toward the corridor. The air turned thick with tension. Each breath felt like a struggle, the darkness seeping into her lungs. But that sliver of light beckoned, flickering like a candle in the storm, holding her gaze. In that split second, something shattered within me. Inspiration struck. "I won't be your pawn, Maggie," she screamed, bolstering her stance as she inched closer to the light. "I choose to fight. I choose to break free from your chains, whatever they are." The shadows shrieked, their twisted forms recoiling as if in pain. The spectral grip weakened, and a wave of clarity flooded over her. She took a daring step forward, feeling warmth radiate from the light. "You have no hold over me." With a final surge of determination, she reached for the light, her hand outstretched, but as she touched it, the ground beneath her erupted, a howl of anguish erupting from the darkness. The spectral hands clutched at her, trying to pull her back. "Maggie!" Lisa screamed, the name a defiance against the encroaching void. "You will not take me or my children." Just then, an ear-splitting crack resounded, snapping the world around her. Lisa was flung backward, the promise of light slipping away, leaving only the darkness behind. "What have you done?" Maggie's chilling voice oozed from the shadows, a brutal promise hanging in the air. "You have awakened something far worse." What had Lisa unleashed? As darkness roared and shadows writhed, she braced for an unknown horror, realizing that in seeking freedom she had stirred a much darker adversary from its slumber. And now she had no idea what was coming. What price would she have to pay for the truth? The ground trembled beneath her as the dark howls converged, an avalanche of despair crashing all around. Lisa stumbled back, the icy grip of the shadows still lingering on her skin. It felt like they were laughing, a haunting cacophony that blended into a single word. Fool. Lisa! Maggie's voice slithered through the darkness, more sinister than before. You've done it now. You didn't just awaken me. You invited something ancient, something that feeds on fear. What does she mean? A flash of terror gripped her heart. Lisa's pulse raced as she fought against the urge to collapse, to sink into the darkness. The flickering light she had reached for flickered in the periphery, threatening to go out. Suddenly, a roar echoed through the vast void, a deep sound that vibrated the very air around her. It was unlike anything she'd ever heard, primal and hungry. The shadows shifted, swirling in response, as if ushering in a new presence. There, at the edge of the darkness, something emerged, a shape, grotesquely large and shifting. It lacked a definite form, its presence both repulsive and captivating. As it moved, dread coursed through Lisa, freezing her in place. "No, not him," she whispered, memories flooding back like a torrent, the stories her grandmother told her, bedtime tales that felt more like warnings. Some evils, it seemed, did not remain hidden for long. "What do you see?" Maggie purred. "The manifestation of your deepest fears. He is here because of your desire to know truth." "Stay away from me," Lisa shouted, stirring her voice against the waves of dread. But her words felt useless, swallowed by the immense being approaching her, its essence an amalgamation of 1,000 nightmares. Through clenched teeth, she fought back tears. "I didn't ask for this. I just wanted to save my children." "And yet, your truth has come at a terrible cost," Maggie trilled, her laughter echoing through the void like bells in a graveyard. "This creature thirsts for despair, and you've opened the floodgates." Cold air burned her lungs as essence of fear coursed through her. For a fleeting moment, it felt like the shadows relented slightly, the chaotic whispers softening. Was it a chance to escape? To push back against the tide of grief and horror? Yet, just as hope flickered, the monstrous figure lunged forward, a mass of tendrils that writhed and twisted into grotesque faces, all screaming in silence. Lisa felt their pain, their sorrow, their despair clawing at her mind. "What do you want from me?" she cried, breath hitching. "Everything," came the haunting chorus of faces around her. It was terrifying, a malice that rumbled deep and loud. "Your truth is the key, dear Lisa. You and your children, each one bears the mark of your choice. We will consume all." Their laughter filled the air again, a twisted symphony that radiated dread. All at once, Lisa understood. She had awakened the darkness and made it hungry. The truth was a double-edged sword. Her fight against Maggie had twisted her fate, marking her children as the next targets in this nightmare. "No!" she screamed, determination igniting within her once more. She couldn't let this be the end. "I won't allow you to take my children." As if summoned by her fear, a sharp pain pierced her heart. She gasped, a violent shudder coursing through her. The shadows coiled around her, squeezing tighter, as if the darkness were feasting on her very defiance. But in the depths of her agony, a small ember flickered alive. Lisa recalled the flickering light, promising hope amidst despair. "I choose to fight!" she shouted, desperately grasping for the courage she thought she had lost. Suddenly, the air crackled with energy, a surge that momentarily pushed back the shadows. But it was fleeting. The being roared in rage, its looming figures constricting tighter, drawn to her newfound strength. As Lisa struggled, she grasped at the light, desperately trying to summon its warm embrace. She felt fragments of her past, laughter, love, the innocent joy of her children, all pushing her forward. Will it be enough? Everything hinged on her next move. But as the creature's tendrils slipped perilously close, Lisa realized she had to make a choice. Fight with everything she had, or succumb to despair. And deeper questions loomed. Would confronting this terror ultimately lead to freedom or further ruin? In that moment, time stood still, the reality of her choices expanding like an unsolvable maze. What sacrifice would she be forced to make, and at what cost? The shadows tightened their grip, an unyielding noose that threatened to crush the hope she'd ignited. Lisa's heart raced, the rhythm echoing in her ears like a war drum. She could feel cold sweat trickling down her back, each droplet a reminder of her vulnerability. Fight, she reminded herself, though it was barely a whisper above the chaos. You have to fight for them. But the monstrous presence roared, a sound that shook the skeletal trees around them. The tendrils writhed closer, each one stirring up memories that she had buried deep within, memories of old fears and forgotten childhood terrors. Faces she recognized from old family photographs twisted into grotesque distortions. They cried out silently, begging for freedom, while also contorting in an eerie dance of despair. Help them. The words crawled from her throat, but they barely left a mark on the overwhelming horror surrounding her. Is that what you want? Maggie's voice slithered in again. Help, or are you just afraid to lose them like you lost yourself? Lisa's chest tightened. It pierced through her anger, the last thread of flame flickering. I lost myself trying to protect them. I will not lose them too. With renewed desperation, Lisa lunged for the light that dwindled in the darkness. It pulsed like a heartbeat, a fragile beacon taunting her from the abyss. She took a step forward, the tendrils recoiling slightly at her movement. It was now or never. Tell me what you want, she screamed, her voice raw, torn from her very core. She had to know what this creature fed on. Your soul, your very essence. The chorus of faces taunted, their tones dripping with menace. But even more, we want your belief in yourself to fade, your hope to disappear. Only then will you become one of us. A surge of rage replaced her fear. They wouldn't take her hope. It was all she had left. You can't have it, she declared defiantly. I won't give in. The laughter echoed violently, reverberating through the trees, making the leaves shudder as if they could feel her pain. Lisa gritted her teeth, feeling the sting of the shadows clawing at her resolve. She reached out again, stretching towards the flickering light that felt like a promise, a memory of warmth and safety. But then, without warning, the darkness stormed forward, a tidal wave of despair. The tendrils lashed out, striking her in an explosive burst of cold. With each hit, her heart seared, memories unfurling like old tapes, visions of her children, laughter turning into screams, their faces twisted in pain. They were being pulled into a void, and she couldn't save them. "Stop!" she wailed, her own fear ripping through her defenses. It hurt to look at the truth, the cost of her defiance. I can't let you... Then she remembered the stories her grandmother told her about the power of love, about how it could blaze, even in the darkest hours. In that flash, she felt something shift inside her, a gravity that drew forth her willpower like a lasso tightening on a fraying bond. I choose love, she shouted, fighting against the suffocating darkness, finding strength in those pure memories. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if unsure. But it was a last-ditch effort. The darkness would not be easily shaken. As tendrils moved to engulf her, she heard Maggie's voice again, dripping with malice. Do you think that love can conquer what's already trapped you? Let them go, she screamed back, throwing everything she had into her words. A shattering silence enveloped them as her command ripped through the air like a shockwave. Just as the creature lunged again, something in the darkness flickered. For one trembling moment, her heart soared with a flicker of hope. But as it dimmed, reality crashed back into her. The shadows were still there, growing more malevolent, the whispering laughter replacing the faint hope. What had she awakened? Suddenly she sensed movement behind her, a shift that sent chills crawling down her spine. Lisa turned, dread clawing at her throat. Something new was coming, lurking behind the mask of shadows. Could it be an ally or yet another monster waiting to strike? One thing was clear, this battle was far from over, and the stakes were rising higher with each flicker of the dying light. Where would her fight take her next? Would she find her children, or was it just another layer of deception? The air crackled with tension as Lisa pivoted, the shadows closing in on her with an insidious hum. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, but her feet felt glued to the ground. What was emerging from the darkness? Her pulse thrummed in her ears, drowning out the echo of Maggie's sinister laughter. The figure materialized, a silhouette against the clinging tendrils. It was tall and thin, its outline distorted as if refracted through water. As it stepped forward, the shadows recoiled further, hesitant, as if afraid of what this entity might do. "Help me!" the voice rasped, low and cracked like dry earth. Was this another trick, or did it signal a deeper part of the nightmare? Lisa narrowed her eyes, trying to discern any familiar features. Was it someone who might assist her, or would this just lead her into a deeper trap? "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice shaking with both fear and defiance. The entity paused, lingering in the half-light of an eerie glow that flickered uncertainly, amplifying the dread within her. "Someone who once fought like you," it replied, the voice echoing with ghostly familiarity. "They pull at your soul, but they have a weakness, a link, a tether that binds them to you." Lisa's heart raced. "What do you mean? How can I—" "Belief," it interrupted, stepping closer so the strange illumination caught more of its form. A gaunt face, eyes shadowed but glimmering faintly, looked back at her, the resemblance to her own visage sending a shiver down her spine. "They feed on your doubts, your fears. Release them and you'll weaken their hold." Doubt gnawed at the edges of her mind. Trusting the shadows was deadly, yet here, so close to her battle's climax, a choice loomed larger than any horror. The tendrils writhed again, sensing her hesitation, growing more insistent. "You don't want to end up like me," it warned, voice trembling now with a note of urgency. "I fell victim to their lies. Find your heart and protect it. Use it against them." A breath caught in her throat. "My heart? What do you mean?" "You went into darkness for them, but it is your love that's the weapon." The entity stretched a hand toward her, the air thickening around them. The shadows roared, thrashing angrily at the new arrival, as Lisa felt sick with fear. The grotesque faces twisted in the gloom seemed to agree. "You will fail! Fear will consume you as it consumed her," they screamed, their voices rising to a crescendo, crashing over her like waves. Then amidst the chaos, something inside Lisa ignited, a fury bursting forth like the initial flame of a match. "You think you can scare me?" She drew on every memory, every moment of laughter, every hug, and every "I love you" that she had shared with her children. The darkness shuddered. "No, you are not supposed to recall them. Forget." "I'll never forget," she yelled, thrusting her hand out. "You want my love. Here it is." With every word, she poured her essence into the air, feeling warmth surge, breaking through the cold. As the shadows recoiled, the figure in front of her suddenly laughed, a smoke-like sound that danced oddly in the moonlight. "Yes, you found it." But just as hope flickered in her chest, the ground shook violently. The shadows twisted, coiling tighter around her, hiding her children further inside their grip. They resonated with a freshly stoked rage, and Lisa's newfound strength was met with a fierce resistance. "Lies will bind you. You cannot escape," They shrieked, faces writhing in agony. All she could feel was the weight of impending doom and the chilling realization that her fight was only beginning. With everything at stake, was this new entity truly an ally? What would it cost her to trust it? Before she could gather her thoughts, a deafening screech pierced the air, a sound that felt like the very fabric of reality tearing apart. Would the shadows grip her heart forever, or would she finally break their hold? Time was running out, and the new darkness approached with sickening speed. She had to decide, fast. Would she fight alongside this phantom, or would she deny its help and remain trapped forever? Lisa's heart hammered in her chest like a racing drum as the chaos whirled around her. The shadows pulsated with dark energy, their voices twisting into a cacophony of threats and promises. The entity before her flickered, still a haunting silhouette against the yawning void. Its eyes shimmering like distant stars. She felt the crushing weight of despair, her hope teetering on a precipice. But the beacon of love pulsed within her like a starlit compass. "You must choose," the figure urged, its voice rising above the turmoil. "You have within you the strength to unravel the darkness encircling your heart and soul." "I can't let them take my children," Lisa shouted over the shrieks of the shadows, determination coursing through her. Her children were lost somewhere in the depths of this nightmare, their lives entangled in the sinister threads woven by Maggie and her terrible army of despair. In that moment of desperation she felt a pulse, a connection to her kids. Memories rushed forward like a surging tide, their laughter on summer days, bedtime stories wrapped in warmth, tender moments of love that intertwined their souls with hers. They filled her with a fierce resolve. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for them, and that reminded her that love had power. "Your lies will not bind me," Lisa yelled, locking eyes with the entity. "I will not fear the darkness. I will shine bright enough that it burns away." With a swift motion, she raised her fists, imagining the warmth of love radiating from her very core. The entity grinned, a proud glimmer flashing in its eyes. "That's it. Let the light rise from you. Show them the depth of your belief." The shadows recoiled at her emerging power, their sinister whispers now fraught with uncertainty. They hissed and shrieked, dark tendrils retreating like waves receding from a shore. It was as if they realized they were no longer the only ones with teeth. Lisa was finding her own, sharp and defiant. "Release my children," she commanded, but her voice was laced with a strength that wasn't there before. She took a step forward into the darkness, refusing to be pushed back any longer. The shadows reached out, but she met them not with fear, but with fierce love, the kind that could shatter illusions, breaking the very fabric of their hold. "Mommy, help us!" came her children's whispers, drifting through the murkiness, echoing like a lighthouse guiding her through a storm at sea. The image sent a flood of warmth through her. Love pulsated within her, a vivid, golden glimmer in the dark. "Maggie!" Lisa shouted defiantly. "Your game is over! You won't take my children!" Suddenly, the shadows surged forward, twisting into a massive wave, and Maggie's ghastly visage broke through. "You think you can overpower me? You will pay." But with every word Lisa spoke, the essence of love swelled within her, rising like thick smoke against a flame. "You're nothing but a lie. My love is stronger than your ridicule." With a wild cry, she thrust her hands toward the darkness, releasing that energy like a shockwave. The air ignited with a golden light, shooting through the shadows and cleaving the gloom. Everything erupted. Luminous beams shot out like fireworks, illuminating the room in an explosion of color, shattering the weight of despair. The cacophony of the shadows was swallowed by the cascade of brilliant light, howls morphing into whispers, deepening into silence. "Yes, you've got it!" The entity cheered, its form ever brighter, merging with her burgeoning power. Together, they became a beacon, a lighthouse cutting through the heart of the storm. "Foolish mortal!" Maggie screeched as the shadows writhed, fighting against the light. "You underestimated the darkness. You will regret." And then the pulse of light enveloped everything. The shadows screamed as Lisa's unwavering love surged forward, consuming them one by one, until all that remained was a swirling haze that dissipated like fog under the sun. The monstrous figure melted away, leaving only a breath of cool air. Slowly, Lisa dared to open her eyes. The world around her transformed. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the remnants of the once ominous room. The shadows that had lingered, their chaotic power stripped away, lay vanquished. "Mommy!" Her children's voices broke through the haze. She spun to see them, their eyes wide and innocent. They stood where the darkness had once cloaked them, trembling but free, their faces shining with hope. She dropped to her knees, grasping them tightly. "I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Tears hot on her cheeks. "You're safe. I won't let anyone take you again." The warmth enveloped them, and as they huddled together, a sense of peace unfurled around them, soothing the jagged edges of fear. Lisa felt the remnants of icy claws, loosening their grip. Darkness could not thrive where love blossomed. Somewhere in the distance, the last echoes of Maggie faded into silence, and Lisa stood, breathless but victorious. "I love you," she whispered to her children, squeezing them tight. "Nothing can stand against our love." And for the first time since her arrival, she felt like she could finally breathe, wrapping her arms around her family as they shared laughter free from nightmares. As they stepped outside, the world seemed to smile back at them with sun-kissed warmth, vibrant and alive. This was their fresh start, a new dawn after darkness. They could finally leave that haunted past behind. Lisa felt ready to rebuild, aware of the truths she'd faced and the power within that had triumphed. Together they would embrace whatever lay ahead, hand in hand. But one thing was certain: darkness would never find her again. At the end of this journey, please make sure you subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that take you beyond the veil of fear. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the story alive. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this chilling conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let's keep the light shining.